Well, good morning. Hello and welcome to our Bowie Business Recovery Roundtable webinar, The New Reality, Securing Business Loans Post-Pandemic, with Eddie Tuvin, Chief Lending Officer at FSC First. FSC First is an innovative and alternative lender here in Prince George's County. My name is Lisa Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Bowie Business Innovation Center, award-winning hub for business acceleration for Prince George's County businesses. And we are located in on the campus of Bowie State University. And I am really pleased that you're joining us for this session today. This is part of a larger 8-month initiative called the Bowie Business Recovery Program, which is a whole collection of technical business assistance programs such as this roundtable, webinars, open door sessions where you can get questions answered one-on-one about your business concerns and your business needs. And this is a collaboration between the Bowie Business Innovation Center and the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce. It's funded by the City of Bowie. To see the upcoming calendar of events, because we have events every single week that are free, please check out the Bowie Business Recovery website, bowiebusinessrecovery.com, and you can see all about the events that are upcoming, and you can also listen to past events because we are recording today's session and we archive all of our events. So I think that we would probably all agree that small businesses have been challenged in unimaginable ways in the last year, and many businesses are saying that they just want to get back to normal. But I guess many of us are now wondering, what is the new normal? What is the new reality? And that kind of gets us to our topic today. As I mentioned, our speaker is Eddie Tuvin, Chief Lending Officer at FSC First. Eddie has a long career, 30 years in commercial banking and real estate development, but is really a lifelong supporter of small business development and growth. And so he kind of brings both of those perspectives together in his work, and you'll hear that coming through in his comments today. I know that he's going to be talking a little bit about what the current climate is for commercial small business lending, and what lenders are really looking for post-pandemic. Because you hear companies talking about, oh, we need to pivot, but what does that really mean? And how important is it to have a well-defined strategy that will guide all of your pivot activities? So I would say, let's get started. If everyone would please put themselves on mute. You can post questions in the chat box. We're very happy to get those, and we will deal with those once Eddie's gone through his remarks, because we are hoping to get some good conversation with the companies that are joining us today. And as a final reminder, this session is being recorded. So, having said all that, Eddie, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa Smith, and Crystal Clark, also here from Bowie BIC. FSC First appreciates this opportunity to coordinate with some of our local small business owners and help wherever we can to guide through this interesting shift as we hopefully come out of the pandemic. Let's go to the next slide, Lisa.
We're stuck here for a second, Eddie. That's it. There we go. Sorry about that delay.
So just for a little bit of background, we're really not a technical assistance provider at FSC First. We are actually a lender, and we have 2 designations that I'll just mention because you may have heard of some of these. One is we're a CDC, a Certified Development Corporation, and that gives us the ability through the Small Business Administration to administer 2 of the loan programs that you'll see on our website. One is the SBA's 504 loan program, which I want to talk about because I think it's important right now in the current marketplace where we are to be able to talk about buying space versus leasing space for small businesses. And then the other is our Community Advantage Loan Program, smaller program, a little bit more flexible in what we can lend for, and also under sort of the umbrella of the Small Business Administration. But we also have another 10 different programs, whether some are for energy efficiency programs or specific to job creation or specific to helping create businesses in terms of locating in certain markets like in Bowie or Mount Rainier, or if you're impacted on the Purple Line, et cetera. So take a look at the FSC First website under our loan programs, and you'll see all the information is there. We have been, I think we'll go to the next slide, and what we've been doing over the past year is with our band of 12 employees, we design and process our loan programs, and we help ensure the servicing of those programs. But we've also been doing grants, which we'll see in the next slide, please, that have helped over 2,000 businesses just in general, not just in grants, but we've done 121 million in approved loans. So it's larger than that now, and 7,700 local jobs. And you can see what we've got going on there. We actually just hired an expert in SBA lending who's going to work remotely in California, which is something that we would have only considered, I think, as a result of what we learned about the pandemic, and for the purposes of our organization having to pivot a little bit so that we could accommodate and get the best talent that we could, given the circumstances at hand. We'll go to the next slide. So over the course of the year, we gave out $25 million in grant money for different things, including the Business Relief Fund for Prince George's County, which was one of the first in the state of Maryland to step forward to help small businesses. And the idea of that was to push the ball down the field a little bit and give you small businesses a little bit more breathing room, similar to what the SBA PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, and the EIDL program were designed to do. They weren't designed to be the end all and be all. They were designed to say, if you could just make it for another X number of months, this thing will have turned around and we'll be on the other side of it. It just, unfortunately, this pandemic has taken a lot longer and a lot bigger toll on businesses than anybody ever could have imagined. And that's why President Biden just enacted another increase for additional support, which we'll be seeing in the near future. But I wanted to start with this COVID-19 business survival and what I saw and what I thought was very interesting comments from Mauro Gullin, who's a professor at Wharton. And the key concepts that I thought were that what we've all learned now is that some commuting is going to change permanently. People are going to work remotely more and more and more. Many people are coming back to their offices, but still with the changing virus that keeps mutating itself and people still getting sick, even though the numbers are relatively small, who wants to risk that threat of, I'm that 1% of 1% that actually became sick from the virus, ended up in the hospital and passed away? Nobody wants that. Is it going to be the demise of retail or the collapse of what we knew as globalization? In his case, the recipe for survival is through transformation of the company. And my point is not a bankruptcy filing. So my comments today are hopefully to give you some insight into how to make changes and what you need to look at so that when you step in front of a lender, you have the greatest probability of getting a yes to your request. And with a little bit of homework and preparation, you will do that. I have referenced a number of different things. I've also shared an article with Lisa that I understand she sent out to all of you about pivot strategies. And this deck will be made available to any of you who, and all of you who want it, and those of you who come after and are watching this video after it was given live. you may request the deck as well. I hope it's helpful. Let's go to the next slide. So a couple things you need to know before you meet your lender. I call this borrowing 101. What is your debt service coverage ratio? What's loan to value? What's debt to equity? What's an 800 FICO score? And what is equity injection and proof? A couple other things I would say is, have you paid all your taxes? Have you ever defaulted on a government loan? Are you a deadbeat in terms of not paying child support? Have you made sure that you're in good standing with the state? And that's easy to find on the Maryland SDAT system. Have you paid that annual? It's normally a $303 fee per year. And there's some documents you may have to file as well in order to maintain that. But a lender's not going to lend to you if you're not up to date. So let's start with debt service coverage ratio, the very, very basic concept. And let me see if I can give it to you in simple terms. The debt service coverage ratio is that amount greater than what your annual debt service would be proposed to be on this loan that you're going to look for and any other loans that you have in place, so that they know that you have the ability to pay it and you still have a little extra money left over. So in most cases, the answer is that the lenders want to see that you have 1.25 times of what your payment is available in free cash flow. So a quarter for every dollar. So for $1,000 a month in payments, they want to see $1,250 to cover it, which we call free cash flow. How do you calculate free cash flow? It's easy. You look at your tax return and you go down to the number for net income and you add back non-cash items. So you're going to add back any depreciation and amortization, which are just accounting items that reduce your taxable funding, and end up with a number that's a cash flow number. Now, if you were going to say do a purchase of a building and you've been paying rent, you would add the rent back to that number. And if you had extraordinary expenses in a certain year that you're never going to have again, like we had this big lawsuit last year and we paid $15,000 in legal fees, and that's an extraordinary one-time, never to occur, most banks will accept that as an add back. That number at the end of the day needs to be, as I said, 1.25 times larger. You should know this, and you should actually calculate what you think your payment is going to be based on your request. You should know the structure of the kind of loan. If I'm looking for some sort of a short-term, loan, how many years are they going to calculate it by? What is it? What's the methodology that the bank looks at it? Well, it's usually at extending the full amount of a short-term loan to its maximum amount that you would have to repay if you took all of it out, and then calculate based on that payment. If it's a longer-term loan, they're going to have a term. Is it a 10-year loan? Is it a 15-year loan? Whatever that number is, calculate what the payment would be. And if you can't figure that out, go get a free download of an Excel spreadsheet that'll give you mortgage calculation. Get your number, and then calculate your free cash flow. Put it down on a piece of paper and show it to the lender. Listen, I calculated what that's going to be, and it looks to me like I can cover this by 1.36 times. I think that's going to be better than the 1.25 times. That lender is going to be blown away, because hardly anybody ever does that. And it's going to show that you know how to manage your business and that you're keeping track of what your revenues and expenses are. So what's the loan to value? The loan to value comes into place where they're looking at collateral, and they want to see what kind of collateral coverage they have. They want to know that at the end of the day, if they have to liquidate the loan, that there's going to be something there to cover the repayment outside of, say, your ordinary income from revenues. Why? Because if they have to liquidate, it probably means that revenues ceased or slowed down to a point where you're in trouble. And so they want to know, what's the equity in your home? Because most of these loans, they're going to ask you to personally guarantee. And if you have equity in your home, yes, you have to recognize the banks are not your partner, and they may come and liquidate your home. And so for that, it's better to know the loan to value And they like it to be somewhere around 75% or greater. Just keep that in mind. There are other types of collateral. There are stocks, but no one can use IRA or 401k. You cannot use retirement funds as collateral. They don't permit that in most cases, especially in SBA lending. Let's put it that way. You can borrow against those, but that's a different story than what we're talking about here. And you have equipment, furnitures, fixtures, inventory, all that have liquidation rates, depending on what the bank feels will be the quick sale of those assets in the event of an auction. All right, debt to equity. You should be able to look at your balance sheet. You should be able to determine from your balance sheet at the very bottom what the equity is. You know, after you look at your assets and so on, your liabilities, and you go all the way to the bottom, you see, you know, what's the net worth. They want to know that any debts, all the collective debts that you have, are not so much greater than the equity value of the business that probably you shouldn't exceed, I'm going to just say here for the purposes of this conversation, 5 or 6 times. If you're borrowing, you know, $500,000, you should have $100,000, maybe a little less in equity. If you're borrowing $1 million, you should have equity that covers it. They're not going to give it to you if you only have $100,000 in equity, and that's going to be, you know, 10 times the debt to equity ratio. It's too much of a stretch for them. So you need to find out and be able to communicate that when you walk in and you do your sit down or you have your Zoom meeting today. But it's better to have it in advance so they recognize that you're a professional and, again, that you're actually managing. It's also better, now is a good time for me to talk about, that you actually have QuickBooks or some other accounting software that allows you on a weekly, you know, monthly basis to be able to figure out at any time where you stand in terms of revenues versus expenses and whether you're on track with your budget for that year. Most lenders want to see that managers have some guide to navigate their ship so that in the event that you suddenly realize your expenses are exceeding your revenues, they don't want you to wait till the end of the year and take a shoebox full of expense slips over to your accountant and for your accountant to then tell you, by the way, you're broke. You didn't make it this year. They want to know that you know and that you're on top of it constantly. And that's really important because you can't fly a plane if you've got blinders on, and you can't manage a business if you don't know what your numbers are on a regular basis while you're navigating through on a day-to-day basis, operating your business. All right, now let's turn to what they look up to with regard to your personal situation. First of all, it's your credit score. So FICO is one of the scores available from the 3 different credit bureaus. And your credit rating is based on, first of all, how much debt you have, how long you've had it, how you pay it. In other words, don't ever go over 30 days or worse, 60 or 120 or more than that. And don't use more than 20% of an available line of credit on a given credit card, because if you use a certain percentage amount, your score goes down. I think if you use over 40% of your credit line, you know, if you use over $400 on a $1,000 credit line, I think it knocks your credit score down by 20 points. It's either 40 or 50% of that number. An 800 FICO score is a super, super strong FICO score. Anything below 680, lenders start to say, you're not going to get our best rate for our loan, or you're not even going to get a loan. So you want to manage what your score is, and you want to make sure that you don't harm yourself by saving the business and using all of your credit cards up to forward cash that you need or to make payments for the business and so on, such that you put yourself in a position where you can't get another loan because your FICO scores have dropped so much. And especially, you don't want to pay late on any of those because that's not going to work. That situation will be something where They're going to ask you for an explanation. You're going to have to provide a written explanation of why was I late on every single item where you were late. And if it was one time, if you had something 4 or 5 years ago where there was an unbelievable medical expense, and because you couldn't pay for it out of pocket, it was a surprise, somebody was in the hospital and there were all these treatments that you had to pay for and it took you forever to pay them, the banker can figure out whether it was a one-time situation or whether you're just a pervasive non-payer of your debts on time. And then they're going to look at things like, are you driving an $1,800 a month leased vehicle and charging it to your business, and then it shows up on your credit report and it wasn't paid for, or something like that? Or why or how that vehicle has anything to do with supporting your business? Those kind of questions come into play with these, what I'll call new world forensic analyses, where the bankers are truly concerned about whether your business can be what's called an ongoing concern. And that's what you have to prove. You have to prove that you've been able to manage, you've been able to steer, you've been able to cut your expenses, you've been able to add additional revenue streams, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and that you have a stable, long-term future that you're going to be able to pay on the first of the month, every month. Remember, they don't want excuses. They have computers to tell them when you're late, and it's not even a matter of being friends. You're going to get a late notice. You're going to get penalties. And eventually, when you come back to try and renew a credit facility, they're going to say no if you're late too many times and you can't pay. So don't bite off more than you can chew. And how do you know that? Because you've been running all your numbers on your internal accounting system, and you've connected with your CPA who says, this makes sense. We think we can cover it, and here's how we're going to cover it. And if you have a written plan as to how you're going to cover that, and what your different revenue streams are and how they're going to be maintained even after the pandemic, so much better to sit down with that lender to show them. So what's equity injection and proof? So to the extent that you may be buying something and you have to prove that you have the cash available, your equity, that money that you've got, some kind of sweat into the deal, real hard dollars, not just the sweat equity, not your work. They want to look at your bank statements, and they want to see over the last 3 months that money's in there. They're going to explore, because they have to know their customer. There's a know your customer rule. They're going to explore and make sure that that was reasonable, that you could have taken that money and put it in the bank over the period of time that it was deposited there, so that they can say to the government, yes, this looks reasonable to us and it's sound, and we don't think this has come from drug trafficking or any other illegal activities. All right, let's look at the next slide. Now we'll talk about pivoting. This is the biggest topic we've heard since the beginning of the pandemic. What do I have to do right now because I can't have customers come into my store, or because I'm not able to sell the kind of products or services that I've been selling, or that I can't get the supply of the things that I've been selling, and so forth. Or the government shut me down. That happened too. Many of us know what happened with that. So let's talk about restaurants. Here we talk about the traditional. You just have a seating area, it's next to the kitchen. But now in the pivotal world, kitchens are a different kind of resource. They're commissaries. They're commissaries to be able to make product and sell it wherever. You can sell it through all these types of different organizations that deliver, and so on and so forth, curbside pickup and so on. And this can be the same for many different businesses. But some of the things that I've seen is, people are home and they're working out of their house, and maybe they're not going to the grocery stores often, or, what can you do? Family meals. I see this at Chef Jeff's. He's got every Monday a family meal of the week. Order this, everything's packaged. You can get it for $2, you can get it for $4. You come in and it's the salad, the appetizer, the dinner, the side dishes, and the dessert. Great. And they survive that way. I saw some restaurants actually opened up, little convenience stores in the front of the restaurant when the restaurant was empty and they had to, move out all the tables. People couldn't sit inside. They used that space for other purposes. Pre-cooked dishes and sides. That's been a really popular thing. And there are a number of organizations where you can actually sell your product over the internet if you have the ability to ship it in frozen containers and things like that. And then, of course, all the different delivery mechanisms that we've seen, Uber Eats and all those other organizations that you can hook up with. Those become revenue streams that maybe you didn't look at very much in a prior life. You were busy with happy hours. You were busy with, trying to figure out multiple day parts and things like that. But today, why not have those multiple revenue streams and keep them? Because you still have the fixed costs associated with what it takes to own and operate the business out of a special space where you can prepare and sell these products. So why not keep it and move forward with it? Let's look at the next slide. This goes to what I was talking about. So in more specific words, you've got Shopify, which started out of Canada as an e-commerce platform, and does delivery. You've got Amazon. You've got other places where your pivot strategy of what you can sell can be increased. On a similar note, I sat on a board of directors finance committee call today for a children's education center. And they used to have a traditional summer camp. Well, last year, they started modifying so that they could have remote learning. And so this year, they will have a limited number of campers per class in the summer camp, but they will also have a number of remote who they could never have touched before. People in different states across the country, depending on time zone, of course, where the children can participate as members of the summer camp from their homes that they never, ever could have had the possibility of servicing. And they're going to keep that revenue stream now for as long as they keep operating, because it changes what they're doing. One of the things that was interesting about Shopify was that with their pivot, if you look at the very last sentences, they have a cloud-based bundle that I wanted to make sure everybody understood that can help vendors both manage your expenses, pay your bills. It gives you some of these cash flow problems, like, wait a minute, what happens if I suddenly get an order for 1,000 pieces and I only have money for, they've got some things to help with that. Some of these organizations, I understand that some of them, like Amazon, may even help finance for you. And the reason they do that is they actually know how much inventory you have on hand with them. And they know how long and what it would take if they had to liquidate it based on your sales patterns. And so they know the amount of the loan that they could potentially give you and feel secure and comfortable with doing that. It may not be the cheapest source of funding, but at least it's something that we talked about. And then they help you optimize deliveries as well. Let's go on to the next slide. So in looking through a number of documents and trying to talk about this, I saw an article, which I believe you have, and this came from that article. And there were 3 conditions that I saw were necessary for a lateral pivot. So the first one, and I'm going to read these to you guys, and if anybody has questions at the end about this, please, we'll take them then. But the pivot has to align the firm with one or more of your long-term trends created or intensified by the pandemic, including remote work, shorter supply chains, social distancing, consumer introspection, and enhanced use of technology. So if social distancing is going to stay the rule for the near future, which we think it is based on what's going on with all the mutations with COVID, then it just makes sense to stay apart from each other to stop the transmission of the disease as best as we can. But people like Tinder, who do casual dating, are going to have to look at what happened with Bumble and Facebook in offering video dating and things like that, rather than in-person dating. Let's go to the next condition. Secondly, has to be based on what your existing capabilities are. And it has to bring it together, not undermine what you're doing. So you look at Airbnb, they had to move quickly to help reconnect with potential guests. And they made people refund money at the beginning. They stepped up to the plate in Washington, D.C., and they stopped bookings around the 6th because they saw issues with problems in some of the people who wanted to stay that could cause, potential issues. And they thought they were going to get a lot of heat for that. But as it turned out, Airbnb was able to shift, and many people moved into other things. So some of the hosts have now extended some of their offerings to online events focused on, and here it is here, cooking, meditation, art therapy, magic, songwriting, virtual tours, just connecting people so people didn't feel so apart and so lonely and so disconnected from society. We're humans. We want contact. We want interaction. And I think it's a really good story. There was a recent article about it in the Financial Times this past week about the chairman of Airbnb and what happened. And he's pretty vocal about how he tends to take more risk than what a conventional CEO might do, because he feels he's willing to take that risk and be wrong, and rather than not. And he's very open about it, and he's very communicative about it, not only with his employees and his team, but with his customers. So here, the hosts and the guests move to a full range lifestyle platform rather than just renting on a daily basis. May not be what everybody here. Hopefully it touches somebody on this call. Let's go to the third condition. You have to offer a sustainable path to profitability. So there's no sense making a pivot if it's not going to be profitable. That's just a long, sliding, slippery slope to bankruptcy. So again, you really need to look at your numbers, and you need to understand your expenses. And one of the things about the organization where I had my board meeting this morning, even with what happened and having to shut our facility down, lock the facility down last March for months and months and months, and the reduction of giving from both our institutional and private donors, we still maintain, by cutting expenses, a net retention of funds at the end of the year. So that means we were able to show a profit and have enough money to start off the new fiscal year with a good amount of working capital to be able to cover our expenses. And we have a big budget. So it was not an easy agenda. And it didn't happen by cutting staff. So that's a positive thing. In this particular third point of the pivot strategy, you'll see I highlighted the last section. It weeds out business models that fail to pivot toward the new reality characterized by shorter value chains, remote work, social distancing, consumer introspection, and enhanced technology use. You have to recognize that that's the reality of post-pandemic. And you have to make sure that you have immersed yourself and understand, and that you have that kind of access to the clients and flexibility for employees and so forth. Right now, some of the brick and mortar businesses across the country, restaurants, are having an impossible time now that we have reopened in certain areas. They can't get employees to come back. Many of those employees are out on benefits now, and they're making more money than they would if they come back, or many of them have just shifted to do other things to survive during the pandemic. So they've lost the ability. One of my good friends owns a fabulous Greek restaurant in Rockville, Maryland, Mykonos. And it's not surprising to see Angelo on the floor serving, running into the kitchen to cook, coming back out and clearing the table, and doing everything he has to do to ensure the ongoing nature of his business. And this is a guy who's the first cousin of the Prime Minister of Greece. So all of us are suffering and trying to move through this, but you've got to recognize shorter value chains, remote work, social distancing, consumer introspection, and enhanced technology use. That is just critical. Let's go to the next slide, please, Lisa. Do not cut back on marketing. Use your online presence to expand at this time. So make sure that you're on all the proper social media venues that fit for you. Instagram, Facebook, business to business is all about LinkedIn, Twitter, and in many cases, people actually have designated individuals for that. I was talking this morning about Peter Scher, who works for Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan. And Peter is the local most senior executive of JP Morgan in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And he's really well recognized because of leading charitable efforts and their amazing contributions that they've made toward, small business growth in the Anacostia area, for example. And one of the things that I'm jealous about is that when you get a response from Peter on his LinkedIn, it'll always start with this little message saying, "Hi, this is Lisa Smith. I manage all the correspondence for Peter on his LinkedIn account." So one day when I'm, Peter Scher, I want to have that person that helps me manage, because that's how important it is. They make sure that somebody stays on those accounts and watches it every single day at JP Morgan. Now, our small business owners, I get it. One of the reasons why small businesses join organizations like the Main Street Initiative, which was an organization that brought the voice of Main Street to the White House, was because small business owners can't leave their business. There's nobody there to run the business if they're not there on a day-to-day basis. So you still have to find the time and figure out how you're going to do this and leverage, all the different opportunities, considering the fact that advertising expense today is so much less than what it used to be. And if you can build a big following, then those people who refer will refer others and refer others, and it just gets to be amazing. Another friend of mine, in the middle of the pandemic, he started a butcher shop in DC. First, he had issues with the neighborhood ANC. They didn't want the butcher shop where it was, even though it's in an alley next to a bunch of other similar small retailers and so forth. And finally, he was able to get it open. And he joined a nonprofit organization that helps train young people and gives them opportunities to work on the job. It's the same old story. You're in school, you go to get the job, and they say to you, "Okay, what experience you have?" "Oh, I don't have any experience." "Well, go get some and come back and work for me." "But how am I going to get experience if nobody's going to give me the experience?" It's that. So he wanted to give individuals that opportunity to get those jobs. Well, as it turns out, I'm looking at Twitter one day, and Jamie Lee Curtis is talking about Georgetown Butcher. Oh my God, the next thing you know, he's on every television channel. And I'm like, how did you do that? That's unbelievable. His sales went through the roof, and he opened another location a few blocks north near the Georgetown Club in DC. It's going to be fish. He's going to sell all kinds of fish as opposed to meats. So you just never know. But if you can get that kind of media coverage, it pays for itself in spades. And he didn't pay a penny for any of it. God bless him. He grew up at around 14th and U Street. Everybody at Ben's Chili Bowl knew him as the little kid who used to come running in the front door and ask him for a hot dog. And today, if you asked him anything about meats, he's the wizard. He knows everything. He's a genius. And his customers love him, and he's very obviously sensitive to our local society and helping others and giving back. Connecting with a nonprofit and giving has become very, very important for many consumers, and something I think all small businesses should consider And not only should they consider it, but they should promote that that's what they're involved in. If you're a woman-owned business, if you're a minority-owned business, if you're a veteran-owned business, you should make sure that you communicate to people, because there are people who are looking to say, I want to buy local. I don't want to buy from a national chain. I want to support somebody local. I want to support a particular business that's owned by a category of individual that I think needs our support right now. I think those are amazing. When you write your marketing strategy, and I think you should have one and you should write it, that you should also think about what's your future customer pipeline, what's that profile, and think about the things that they're sensitive to that I've been talking about. Because the more proactive in communicating with potential customers online you can be, the more business you will end up receiving. And remember, you only receive, if you contact 1,000 people, you'll be lucky if you get a 1% response, and you can convert a couple of those into customers. So that's how it works. And those are the 3 bullet points on the bottom of the slide. The last of which is just use all those available online tools so you can communicate. Use your e-blast. There are all kinds of MailChimp and other types of services that you can use to make sure that you're legally complying with the spam laws, and you give anybody the opportunity that wants to remove themselves from your list to be able to remove themselves from your list, so that you don't get blackballed and you don't look like somebody that's sending out emails and forcing people to read, spam, and to be able to share the email with someone else who might want to join. That's another important point. Let's go to the next slide. 43% of business-to-business marketers name Facebook as their most important advertising channel. Think about that. So if you don't have a Facebook professional site for your business, you should probably rethink that right now and make sure you do. My own personal, I use LinkedIn. I don't have a Facebook account. I'm not on, Instagram or any of that, but LinkedIn, I'm on it daily, multiple times. LinkedIn gives me a reminder when it's Lisa Smith's birthday, and all I have to do is click and it automatically sends Lisa a note. And Lisa says, oh my God, thank you for remembering me. And by the way, I have this great borrower in Prince George's County that wants to buy a building. That's how you do it. Once you become, involved in a relationship with an individual on a personal basis, and you can become trusted, that's the key. And somewhere in here, I have linked the name of a book that I think is a really great book called The Trusted Advisor. And basically the concept of being a trusted advisor is that if somebody trusts you, the next person in the same business as you is never, ever, ever going to break that bond unless you do something to destroy that level of trust that that person has in you. Because it's very difficult to move, number one. And number two, why would anybody want to leave somebody who they trust, who's providing them a reasonable service at a reasonable price and seen as a valued partner in their business? A couple other sites to check out, Quora and Reddit. And then if you want to get reviews so you can get some feedback about what's going on about your business, G2 Crowd and Capterra. So I'll read the last bullet point. By creating a listing for your business in a relevant category, you can give potential buyers insight into what your services and products are so they can determine which option is the best for them. That's exactly what you want. You need to get in front of people so they can see what it is you're selling, what it is you're servicing, what do you have to offer them? And that's a really valuable way to reach a much larger audience than you could do by one-on-one, the expense of mailing, buying mailing lists, et cetera, et cetera. The world of marketing, this is it today. This is how it's changed. Next one, Lisa. All right. There are 2 kinds of pivot strategies. And this comes right out of one of the articles. There's a business pivot and a market pivot. So the business pivot happens when your company makes a fundamentally strategic change. You're going to stop doing one thing completely, and you're going to start doing something else. Marketing pivot, when you start doing something as a direct result of a temporary condition in the market, but you have every intention of just returning to your original line of work when the market shifts. My opinion, what I'm talking about, what I think you need to do, determine whether or not you can keep your business the way it is today, and look at other pivots that not only can you use now, but that you can retain, so that instead of having one income stream, 2, 3, 4. Why? Because the more revenue streams you have, the more diversified your revenue sources are, the less chance you have of losing one revenue source and not maintaining the business. The strength that you will be able to present to the lender is so much greater when you can say, these 3, 4 different things are what my revenue sources are, and I'm going to keep them all. Now, what's that theory translate to into the world of, say, investments? How does that work? And why is it a sound theory? So modern portfolio theory, which a few economists won a Nobel Prize for, says that diversification of an investment portfolio is the #1 method for reducing overall risk in the portfolio. So what that means is that when you're investing your money for your retirement account, if you put your money into different types of investment, so you put it in a growth fund, you put some of it in an Asia fund, you put some of it in fixed income funds, you put some in alternative like a real estate fund, small growth fund, etc. That to the extent that one category might get hit, the others are going to do okay. And in some cases, some of those different types of investments work in an inverse relationship to the others, so that normally when one is down, the other goes up, and vice versa. So that in general, by diversifying your holdings, you're minimizing and reducing your overall total risk, versus say, I'm going to put all my money on black #7 and hope that I hit it when that roulette wheel spins. Obviously, the more places that you have bet on that wheel, the higher the chance. You bet on every single, number on the wheel, you're going to win every single time. You may not win enough to take enough money off the table to beat how much your bet was, but that's the theory. So keep that in mind as you think about your pivot strategies. And I'm suggesting that you keep the one that you have if it works, and you add others and you keep them, because those were business revenues that you could have had all this time. You could have been adding potential additional revenue, because your space is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Some businesses can't work in the middle of the night. Some businesses can. But to the extent that you could utilize your services to generate more revenues and to expand into other areas and reduce your risk, the better off you are. Let's go to the next slide. Well, this was a Greg Tarantino. He was on the 360 blog, and there's my book recommendation at the bottom by David Maister. He has a co-author. I didn't give him credit. I apologize for the bye down there. It wasn't meant to be. It was just meant to be by David H. Maister. But when people trust you to get them crucial information quickly, you can build a solid foundation for a relationship that's going to benefit you. That goes with your banker also. So let's make sure of one thing. When you are a brewing company and you're going to the bank to develop a relationship for your little craft brewery down on Main Street in Bowie, make sure you find a lender that understands brewing companies, because there's plenty of lenders in these banks, but only a few of them may have a specialty in the particular area of expertise in your business. I happen to know a lender who's got the daycare and charter school market wrapped up, like right here in her head. She knows every single ratio. She knows how much it costs per seat. She knows what you need to break even. She knows what your expense ratio should be. She knows exactly what percentage your payroll should be to your revenues in order for you to be in line with your peer group of all others. And if you don't fall in line, she's going to send you a letter once a year that says, listen, your ratios are not in line with what others are, and you need to take a look at this. Why? Because she doesn't want you to go bankrupt, because you owe them money and she wants to make sure that you're on track. But you need to make sure you go to the person that understands it so that they can get you to a yes or a quick no, rather than a long drawn out maybe, because they need to keep your name on their book to show their boss they have a pipeline. Oh, I've got 12 prospects and one of them, blah, blah, blah. And yours happens to be the one that they know nothing about, and they've been dragging you along for a long time. And you find out after 8 months of dealing with them, sorry, we can't do anything for you. Don't go down that road. Find a lender that fits for your particular business and that they understand and have customers in your area of business practice. Let's go to the next. Speed. I found this from McKinsey and Company, and I did as best as I could of pasting this. But the bottom line was, in today's day and time, you don't have a lot of time. You need to move rapidly in order to ensure that you implement strategy that makes a change to your bottom line as fast as possible. For example, if you haven't gone in and looked really hard about cutting expenses that are unnecessary, you need to do so, and you need to get it done in the next week. You need to figure out where you can cut and what you can cut. And then if it's something that's a permanent cut, keep it that way. You know, so many people think it's so cool to pay for all their personal expenses through their business. But at the end of the day, what that does is it just shows the next buyer of your business that you're not making the kind of profit that you could, and your business valuation is lower because you had all these other expenses. Even if they do look at it and they understand, well, I paid for my phone, my wife's phone, my daughter's phone, my cousin's phone, a car for my grandmother. No, I mean, eventually that just doesn't work. You sold the business before you sold the business, and you're not going to recover a lot of that value. But the truth is, we're talking about survival right now, and cash is king all the time. You've heard people say cash is king over and over and over again. Now more than ever, the bank wants to see that you have that cash and that you've done what was necessary to create a business that's going to be stable. And I keep saying this, an ongoing business for a long period of time to make that payment. What did I say? The first of the month, every month, no excuses. They don't want to be calling you and picking up the phone and asking you where it is all the time. You'll be on the bad person list, and you don't want to be on that list, because they will increase the risk rating on your account if you haven't made your payments on time. And eventually you'll lose your relationship with that banker who was your banker, and they'll put you in with somebody that's the workout professional. And they won't call themselves that, but most of them have some kind of a law background, which means you're about to get some legal documents, and not too far from now, if your situation doesn't change super rapidly. So what I'm saying here, with speed is the key, and stepping up your execution excellence, and cultivate extraordinary partnerships with your vendors, and unleash nimble powered teams, and make hybrid work. Figure out a way to make hybrid work for your business. And then look at who the leadership is in your organization, and make sure you have that in place today, so that, you know, as things change rapidly, people are going to start retiring early. They're sick of working from home. They just want to go to the beach. That's why Airbnb has been so successful recently, because what happened was they had a big drop in the beginning, and then people said, well, I'm working remotely anyways. Why should I be working from my condo in downtown DC, where I'm looking out over, you know, the next building and seeing everybody sitting around in their units? Why shouldn't I work at the beach? So people rushed to get all these places, and they've been working remotely for quite a long time. So, you know, rethink the role of what a CEO and leadership position is, because it's changed, and do it quick. That's all McKinsey is saying here. And again, I think that's in the article I sent you. So you'll be able to read more about what that's all about when Lisa sends you that article, if you don't already have it. Let's go to the next slide. Digital, make your plan for 90 days. Again, this came from them. Accelerate your digital, your tech, your analytics. Like I said, make sure you know and have a handle on what your numbers are, and go from there. I think I've talked about all of this, and so I'm not going to belabor you with it, but it's there and it's in the slide because I thought it was important. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. This may be crazy because many of you are just simply trying to survive, but now could be an amazing time to decide to purchase a facility to house your business instead of lease. Couple of reasons. Number one, expense. You can fix one of your largest expenses next to payroll, depending on your business, obviously, for a long time. That's number one. Number two, interest rates are unbelievably low right now. So if you can leverage and put a little bit of money into buying a facility and own it and control that expense, it's a great idea. How do you do that? Let's go to the next slide. The Small Business Administration has a loan program called 504. In this, you'll look at either the graph or on the right-hand side of the bullet. A traditional bank comes up with 50% of the money. Why is that great for a bank right now? Because if you're a lender at a bank, real estate is not a great investment to be backing right now. They're scared about real estate. They're scared about business defaults. They're scared about how many people are going to come back to office buildings, right? Are they ever going to come back? Are people going to be like the folks at Facebook and get to work remotely for the rest of their lives after they built these massive campuses with all kinds of great thrills and I mean, you know, they have dry cleaners at their facilities. They have gyms at their facilities, 5 kinds of different food venues, nap rooms, you know, ping pong, all the good stuff. Will that go by the wayside? Well, it's definitely going to get reduced. And we don't know how long it's going to take for it to come back. And a lot of people, they just like working from home. They're not sad about missing that commute and about not polluting the environment with all the gas guzzling that makes them sit in their cars on the Beltway all the time. But if you're only in at 50%, the probability that if it goes into default, you're going to get your money back is much, much higher. At 50%, you're pretty certain that you're going to be able to go out at an auction and you're going to get your money back. So the banks are willing to do that instead of putting up 75 to 80% of the money. The other thing is we come in at FSC First with up to 40% on an SBA loan for up to 5.5 million. 5.5 is a special case. 5 million is a normal case. We take a second lien position and we come in behind the first trust lender. They may be 10-year fixed rate, 5.25%, but we're coming in right now with a 25-year fixed rate deal at like, you know, 3%, 3.25%. It depends on the auction every month. That's amazing institutionally priced funds. And what else does it do? It gives even a greater comfort to the first trust, that senior bank lender at 50%, because our interest rate is lower and our payment is longer over 25-year amortization. The monthly payment from us would be smaller than it would be with them. So the combination of the two makes it easier for you as the borrower to repay that. So you get the fixed rate, you get the lower total combined cost, and you own your own destiny. And the only concern you have to have really is, am I going to outgrow this space? Okay. That has to be factored into it because the 504 loan requires that this is owner-occupied commercial real estate. And in an existing building, you have to occupy over 51%, and we cannot count revenue from any rental really. We count your revenues only as repayment capability for debt service coverage, which all of you are now experts in. We count that because if you grow, we need to know that your company can repay that debt service, not some other company. And the other thing is that if you do own your own property, somewhere down the road, if you decide to sell to your employees or to a third party, you could eventually rent that building back to the company that you sell to. And now you've got a built-in retirement fund. And if you pass that on to your heirs, they get a one-time step up in basis. You've increased the value of your estate, and you never really had to pay taxes on that increase. because you passed it on and they got the one-time step up. So there are a number of different reasons. Now, if you look at my last bullet, just so everybody understands this, 10% has to be if it's multi-purpose and an existing commercial building. It's 15% if it's like a special purpose building, or if it's new business and special purpose property, then it could be 20%. But the whole idea is to have you put less of your working capital out of your pocket from your business into real estate and leverage being able to own a building. Again, I think it's a great time to be able to do that and fix that for the long run. And FSC First in Prince George's County, Howard County, Calvert County, Charles County, Montgomery County, we're here to service that, and we do it, and we do it quickly, especially with the help of our new senior underwriter who's expert in this area in California, which is one of the biggest markets for SBA lending. Here, people come in, they ask for a conventional loan first. California, they walk in the bank. Do you have an SBA specialist? That's the first thing everybody wants there, and they're much more comfortable with SBA lending than here. But we have a huge, huge number of clients using the SBA platform for all kinds of things, and it's really, really fantastic. Let's go down to the next slide. So to be eligible, I just want everybody to have this. You have to be a for-profit entity. We cannot lend to nonprofits. So you have to be a corporation, partnership, proprietorship, industrial, commercial, service businesses. Your tangible, it's only for small businesses. So the tangible net worth of the business can't exceed 15 million and the average net income of 5 million or less after tax average over the prior 2-year period. So we're going to look at the tax returns for 2 years. We're going to take that average and we're going to look at that and see what the numbers work out to be. I talked about this owner occupied real estate scenario. I'm not sure if I mentioned that if it was newly constructed, you have to occupy 60% of it. And you can rent some of the other portions. But again, remember what I said. These have to be US-based businesses. The borrower has to be a US citizen or a legal permanent resident. So we can't lend to alien residents and people on white passports and things like that. And you have to retain one job for every $75,000 that are financed within 2 years. So again, with most of the things that FSC First does, we're looking at job creation and job retention. And I will tell you that at the beginning of 2020, Prince George's County was the leader in creation of new jobs in the state of Maryland. And we lost most of those jobs during the pandemic. So now we're in the point of focusing on rebuilding, and the government is 100%, the CEX is 100% behind everything that needs to be done to help small businesses grow and prosper in Prince George's County. I'll throw that in as a biased opinion. Next slide, please, Lisa. Again, our loan amounts are 5, and in special cases 5.5, but we sit behind that first trust lender. So imagine, they could be 6 million, we're at 5 million, you come in for your 10%, and so you can do a pretty decent sized transaction with a 504 loan. It not only can it be used, by the way, for the building, but if you had if you're a manufacturer or something like that, you needed walk-in refrigerators and freezers or specialty equipment, things of that nature, we can put that into the transaction as well. And the amortization on those becomes 10 years. So if it could be less than a 25-year deal because we had 10% of the loan was for equipment, 90% of the loan was for real estate. Okay, instead of 25 years, we had 22-year amortization fixed for end term, amortization and term, both at the same time. There's a 10-year declining prepayment penalty. So if you wanted to pay it early, the second trust loan, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it's based on the amount of the loan, and it's reduced, the interest rate reduced by 10% every year. I talked about your down payment. There's always going to be collateral. And by the way, there's always going to be personal guarantees on these. That's the law. Every SBA lending partner has to employ the same exact rules and regulations. They don't have to participate in SBA. You don't have to borrow from SBA, but if you do, that's one of the set rules. Anybody with over 20% or greater has to sign personally. Next slide. All the eligible costs, I talked about most of these, but the things that can go into the pool of what the total project is, the cost of the building or the condo, the cost of the land, the cost of the construction, renovation, restoration work, FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, purchase of the machinery and equipment, anything, with a minimum useful life of 10 years. So that's why I'm talking about durable equipment, a roasting machine for a coffee company, things of that nature. And then we can also roll some of the closing and soft costs in. You still have to pay your percentage, but we can roll portions of it into the loan. And when you come to the bank, if you're buying property, you need to have at least a letter of intent to show that you and the seller agree, and this is what it's going to be. These are the terms and conditions. This is the price. And if you're building something, you need to at least have an architect's budget of what it's going to cost to build, or a contractor's budget of what it's going to cost and how long it's going to take. So we know how many months of interest carry and so on and so forth. And you need to factor in, and you need to understand. And you can talk to people in the county economic development department about this. You can talk to people at Bowie Bick about this. How long is it going to take me in Prince George's County to get a permit? So if I buy the land here and my contract says I have to pay before I get my permit, and you're okay with that, and you believe you're going to get your permit, and your zoning is okay and all that, then it'll take me X number of months. That you have to be prepared for. And especially now, because a lot of people in the county have been working for remote, so they're backed up as well. Next slide. This was a pivot strategy item that I saw about different things that could be done for different types of businesses. I was down in National Harbor the other day. I saw a really neat fitness facility, and the owner's amazing, big time trainer, all kinds of certifications and things of that nature. And the bottom line was, when are you going to get enough people into this space, and how many people can you get in the space? Can you get enough people in the space to be able to service the kind of mortgage and debt that you're talking about? And what else can you do? Well, digital fitness programs. So he's going to go online. He's going to start doing things like that. He's going to look at health and wellness as well. So beside actual exercise, how can he get out there and do things for health? There's a lot of stress. People are under a lot of stress right now. So they're looking at that. And these were just some other thoughts of different things that people can do from the Don Ryan Center for Innovation. I'll let you all read it, see if it makes any sense and if it's of any value to you. Next, please. This is who we are, and I'm going to open it up to questions right now if I've left enough time, hopefully.
Yeah, we certainly have time for a couple of questions. I would like to also just add 3 quick points, and that is that if you are interested in having an individual conversation with Eddie, he's available a week from today at the same time, 11 to 12. And you can go onto the Bowie Business Recovery website to register for that. And you'll also get an e-flyer about it on Monday. So that's one option.
We're going to charge, but we're charging like 3 times as much for that, right? So
no, we're charging
3 times 0, 3 times 0, which is 0.
Exactly. No, but a lot of times companies like to follow up with individual questions. So Eddie's very graciously made some time in his calendar to be available in one of our open door sessions a week from today. Eddie talked about the importance of understanding and managing your business activities. As luck would have it, the Bowie Business Recovery Program has got a session tonight called Crash Course on QuickBooks, which is proving to be really popular. And again, you can go online to our website and register through there. And you may have also received a flyer about it. But tonight at 5 o'clock, Crash Course on QuickBooks, and that will be recorded, so you can check that out if tonight is not convenient. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, Eddie spent a lot of time talking about the move to digital. And this is exactly what Bowie businesses are telling us that they want to hear. And so we have planned next week on the 12th of May, we're going to have Danielle Robinson from Where's My Meeting talking about how to move your business marketing online. And her firm just recently coordinated a very successful state of the county event with County Executive Angela Alsobrooks here in Prince George's County. And so Danielle is going to be ready to share some of her tips and tricks for online marketing. So let me see here. As far as questions that we've got here. Crystal, do we have questions in the chat box?
We do not.
Okay.
No, I see thanks from Crystal Clark. I see great thanks from Horace of Hairbrook Pro. And you know, if there's no questions, you all know where to reach me. Thanks for the appreciation. Lisa and I are partners in trying to make sure that we can direct all of our local small business owners to resources that can help them. And obviously, Billy Bick has a great series of different educational coursework that can help you become more prepared for handling the future. I highly recommend you get on board with this QuickBooks program tomorrow. Is that when it is?
It's tomorrow. There's the 2 sessions. It's this week, and it's this Thursday and next Thursday.
And I highly recommend you
tonight, Eddie. It's tonight.
It's tonight. So I highly recommend
Thursday
it.
And next Thursday as well. But they can see that on the website, and they'll also get invitations to sign up for that. That's going to be a great session tonight.
You know, the best thing is you can make your own popcorn, you can wear your fluffy slippers, and nobody can say a word to you about it. And you're learning about how to improve the probability of maintaining and stabilizing your business for the long run, even through this most difficult time. If you can make it through these really difficult times, it's just going to be that much easier when things get better. And so it's a stress test, just like we take today's interest rate and we look at whether you can make that debt service coverage. We also add 2 percentage points to that, and we call it a stress test to see if you can make it through a period of time when interest rates may go up, so that if that happens over the course of the life of the loan, we know you're going to be able to do that. That's what's been happening. You know, that's what 2020 was all about. It was a stress test to see whether or not you could survive. Not that we want to have it happen again, but it's a hard learning lesson, but one very worthwhile. And now's a really good time to bone up on some other managerial skills like QuickBooks. And there's a whole list of other programs through Billy Bick that I would highly recommend for you.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for joining us. And I think that we will just say, keep tuning in. Lots more good resources and business assistance coming. And thanks to all for their hard work and staying the course, so to speak. So over and out. How about that?
Bye, everybody.
Okay,
have a great
bye
day.
now.
Thank you all. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, Crystal.